Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's short story, Checking Out, which I'm reading out of the Norton Anthology of English Literature. So this is a story about a Nigerian immigrant. I think he's Nigerian. I'm reasonably sure. For some reason, it just occurred to me that he might be Ghanaian, but I'm reasonably certain he's Nigerian. A Nigerian immigrant to London. Yeah, he's Nigerian. I take it back. I'm sure now. And the difficulties that he encounters as an undocumented worker trying to find employment, trying to navigate a society that is not particularly welcoming to him, both as a person of color and specifically as an undocumented worker, and so on and so on. And we get this thematic element right from the beginning of the short story. This character, Obinze, he's hanging around he's hanging around in a tube station, basically. And one of the things he says as one of the things he thinks as he's watching these people walk past is they walked so quickly as if they had an important destination, a purpose to their lives. His eyes would follow them with a lost longing, and he would think, you can work. You are legal, you are visible, and you don't even know how fortunate you are. And so this immediately sets this theme of the invisibility and the precarity of an undocumented worker, an undocumented immigrant existing in a society. Obinze is planning to get married to this girl. It is an arranged marriage, but not in the traditional sense of like their parents arranged it, in the sense of there's a group of Angolans who set up marriages between citizens and people looking for whatever the British equivalent of a green card is. I don't know what the equivalent in the UK is. But basically, this is a marriage in which it's a brokered marriage so that Obinze can get rights to live and work in the UK by being married to a citizen of the United Kingdom. It's not legal. And indeed, this becomes a big issue later on. Actually, the short story ends with them. They've gone up to Newcastle from London. They've gone up to Newcastle to get married because the Angolans figure there's too many people, too many undocumented immigrants getting married to citizens in London. The authorities are catching on. And so we're going to send you up to Newcastle. And yet on the day of their wedding, at the end of the short story, hashtag spoilers, Obinze is picked up by the authorities. And it ends with this bit where he is sort of brought in with the public defender. We get this bit slightly before this. The immigration officer who arrests him says, I can arrange for a lawyer for you, but it's obvious you'll be deported, the immigration officer said evenly. When the lawyer came, puffy-faced, dark arcs under his eyes, Obinze thought of all the films in which the state lawyer is distracted and exhausted. He came with a bag but did not open it, and he sat across from Obinze holding nothing. No file, no paper, no pen. He was pleasant and sympathetic. The government has a strong case. We can appeal, but to be honest, it will only delay the case. You will eventually be removed from the UK, he said, with the air of a man who had said those same words in the same tone more times than he wished to or could remember. I'm willing to go back to Nigeria, Obinze said. The last shred of his dignity was like a wrapper slipping off his waist that he was desperate to retie. The lawyer looked surprised. Okay, then, he said, and got up a little too hastily as though grateful that his job had been made easier. Obinze watched him leave. He was going to check a box on a form that said that his client was willing to be removed. Removed. The word made Obinze feel inanimate. A thing to be removed. A thing without breath and mind. A thing. So that's what we get at the end of the story. And the focus here is really on the challenges faced by Obinze throughout, because the system is stacked against him. It is a system that is unwilling to really allow many people to come and seek opportunity, and it has particular walls set up to prevent that opportunity to prevent people from pursuing that opportunity. One of the things that I think, so we initially get this, his mother back in Nigeria is really reluctant to have him go, but ultimately, so he really wants to go to the U.S. Obinze really wants to go to the U.S. That's his big dream. It turns out he can't do it. Well, we find out he goes to the immigration office, the U.S. consulate, whatever it is. And it says here, finally it was his turn, and the blonde bearded man said, next person. Obinze walked up and slid his forms underneath the glass. The man glanced at the forms and said kindly, sorry, you don't qualify. Next person. Obinze was stunned. He went 3 more times in the next few months. Each time he was told, with barely a glance at his documents, sorry, you don't qualify. And each time he emerged from the air-conditioned cool of the consulate into the harsh sunlight, stunned and unbelieving. His mother eventually, even though she opposes him leaving Nigeria, gets him into the UK because she is an academic at a Nigerian university, and she has him listed somewhat inaccurately as her research assistant, which allows him a visa entry into the UK. But from there, he has no real resources or support or anything that he can sort of officially rely on in order to ensure that he has housing, ensure that he has access to food, ensure that he has access to work, etc., etc. And so everything that he does essentially from this point becomes a crime. Because he hooks up with somebody that he had known in Nigeria, even though it was someone he didn't particularly care for, that person actually helps him buy a social insurance number so that Obinze can work. The friend's friend, Vincent, lets Obinze work under his social insurance number in exchange. Initially, I think they bargain him down to about 20% of Obinze's earnings. But then later on, that guy, the actual Vincent, basically comes back and demands 40%. So that all occurs. This is, I think, one of the most interesting episodes of this short story, because Obinze seems like quite a good worker. Like, there's no issue of like he's sponging off the system or something like this. It's an issue of he cannot legally work, even though while he is working, he is good at it. He's good at the delivery jobs that he's doing. And yet he lives in this constant terror that it will be discovered that he is not actually Vincent, and that he will be arrested, deported, whatever it is. And there's this particular moment in, I'd say just out, shortly after the halfway mark, maybe in the short story, where he arrives for work and everybody is looking at him oddly. And he's terrified that this is the day he's getting arrested, that they have found out that he is not Vincent. And it turns out it was Vincent's birthday. He'd forgotten that his birthday, Obinze's birthday, was not the birthday that they would have on file. Because he has Vincent's social insurance number, they would have Vincent's birthday on file. So he had totally forgotten that it was his birthday. It was Vincent's birthday. And his colleagues end up throwing him a small party. But again, that sort of, that terror of when does everything collapse is central to the short story itself. And again, I think it's really important that Obinze is such a good worker. He actually, and actually the girl that he's paid the Angolans to set him up with in a sham marriage for immigration status, he actually does quite like her, and she quite likes him. They are actually not necessarily in love, but they're definitely moving in that direction. And so we get this character who is sort of building a life, doing all of the things that as a normal, productive, legal member of society he would want to be doing, but he always has to do them under the shadow of deportation.